She was Hollywood royalty, worshipped by millions. Behind closed doors, a different story unfolded. Joan Crawford crafted her image with surgical precision. But what did that perfection cost? The cameras caught her glamour. They missed the wounds that never healed. Born Lucille Lesueur in 1904, Joan Crawford entered the world with neither privilege nor promise. Her childhood in San Antonio, Texas, was marked by poverty and instability, a stepfather who abandoned the family, a mother who struggled to make ends meet, and a brother who died young. Before she was 10, young Lucille was working as a domestic servant to help support her family, scrubbing floors in exchange for school tuition. Those early years of deprivation would haunt her forever, embedding a desperate fear of poverty that no amount of future wealth could erase. The girl who once cleaned other people's homes transformed herself through sheer determination. After a brief stint as a chorus girl, she arrived in Hollywood in 1924 and signed with MGM. Studio head Louis B. Mayer saw potential in the raw, energetic dancer, but demanded a complete reinvention. Lucille Lesueur died that day. Joan Crawford was manufactured in her place. Her teeth were fixed, her hair color changed, her accent polished away. Even her name came through a fan magazine contest, the final piece of identity stripped away and replaced with something more marketable. Crawford understood the bargain. Stardom required sacrifice. She would later reflect, "If you want to be a star, you have to work harder than anybody else and be twice as good." And work she did. While other actresses relied on natural beauty or connections, Crawford built herself hour by hour, studying every aspect of filmmaking and learning how to position herself to catch the light just so. She was often on set before the crew arrived and stayed long after they left. The studios marveled at her work ethic, but few recognized it for what it truly was, the desperate drive of someone who knew what it meant to have nothing. Her ascent was meteoric. Films like Our Dancing Daughters in 1928 established her as the quintessential flapper, embodying the liberated spirit of the jazz age. When talkies arrived, the technological shift that ended many silent film careers, Crawford adapted seamlessly. Her distinctive voice, with its carefully cultivated mid-Atlantic accent, became another tool in her arsenal. By the early 1930s, she ranked among Hollywood's most bankable stars, her face plastered on magazine covers across America. The public saw confidence and glamour. They didn't see the woman who saved scraps of food in her purse at lavish Hollywood parties, unable to shake the fear that it might all disappear. What drives someone to such relentless self-creation? For Crawford, perhaps it was the knowledge that everything she had could vanish in an instant. Hollywood was littered with forgotten stars. The studio system that made her could break her just as easily. MGM owned her image, her time, even aspects of her personal life. They arranged dates for publicity, chose her wardrobe, and monitored her weight obsessively. When she gained a few pounds, Louis B. Mayer himself would call her box office poison until she starved herself back to the required silhouette. Her relationships became part of the manufactured narrative. Her marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr. in 1929 united two Hollywood dynasties, but the union was troubled from the start. Fairbanks' family, especially his stepmother, Mary Pickford, never accepted Crawford, viewing her as common and unworthy. The marriage lasted just 4 years. Could someone constantly reshaping herself to please an audience ever truly connect with another person? Or was intimacy just another performance for the cameras? By the mid-1930s, Crawford's career faced its first serious threat. As she approached her 30s, MGM began promoting younger actresses. The roles offered to her grew smaller, less prestigious. The studio system was ruthlessly efficient. Stars were products with limited shelf lives, but Crawford refused to fade away. When MGM cast her in The Ice Follies of 1939, a film she considered beneath her talents, she orchestrated her own comeback. She campaigned relentlessly for the role of Crystal Allen in The Women, 1939, a part that allowed her to shed her good girl image and play a shrewd, ambitious shopgirl. The film revitalized her career and showcased her ability to evolve. Crawford understood something fundamental about survival in Hollywood. Reinvention wasn't just an option, it was a necessity. While other stars clung to fading personas, she would transform herself again and again. Her greatest reinvention came in 1945. After 18 years at MGM, the studio released her from her contract. a polite way of saying they no longer saw value in her. At 40, most actresses faced obscurity. Crawford faced unemployment with 3 adopted children to support and a recently failed marriage to actor Philip Terry. The press wrote her obituary as a has-been. But what Hollywood didn't understand was that Joan Crawford had been fighting impossible odds her entire life. She signed with Warner Brothers and actively pursued the title role in Mildred Pierce, a part initially offered to Bette Davis. Studio executives resisted, believing Crawford was finished. She fought for a screen test, stunning them with her performance as a middle-class mother who sacrifices everything for an ungrateful daughter. The film earned Crawford her only Academy Award and cemented one of the greatest comebacks in Hollywood history. When she accepted her Oscar, supposedly ill at home, photographers captured her receiving the award in bed, wearing a perfect face of makeup. Even in triumph, the image had to be controlled. Behind the carefully constructed facade, Crawford's personal life grew increasingly complex. Her adoption of 4 children, Christina, Christopher, Cynthia, and Cindy, presented the image of devoted motherhood that played well in fan magazines. But motherhood, like everything else in Crawford's life, came with impossible standards of perfection. Her obsession with cleanliness and order, likely rooted in her impoverished childhood, manifested in strict rules and harsh discipline. Children who failed to meet her standards reportedly faced severe consequences. Christina Crawford's memoir, Mommy Dearest, published a year after Joan's death in 1977, would forever change public perception of the star. The book detailed allegations of physical and emotional abuse, including the now infamous wire hanger incident. Some of Crawford's friends and other children disputed these accounts, creating conflicting narratives about her private life. Was Joan Crawford a monster behind closed doors, or was the truth more nuanced? Perhaps the woman who spent her life performing had lost the ability to distinguish between the person and the persona, especially in the unscripted moments of family life. What remains undisputed is Crawford's iron control over her image. Well into her 50s and 60s, when most actresses disappeared from public view, she maintained a regimen that would exhaust people half her age. She exercised religiously, underwent painful cosmetic procedures, and adhered to strict diets. Photographers noted that she knew precisely how to position herself to hide any perceived flaws. On film sets, she demanded specific lighting and camera angles. The compulsion for perfection never waned. She was photographed scrubbing hotel bathroom floors before using them, unable to trust that anyone else could meet her standards. Her rivalry with Bette Davis, culminating in their collaboration on Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962, revealed the limited options for aging women in Hollywood. The film cast them as bitter, delusional former stars, a grotesque parody of their real-life struggles to remain relevant in an industry that discarded women after 40. Crawford, then in her late 50s, allowed herself to look haggard and disturbed on screen, perhaps her bravest performance. The film revitalized both careers briefly, but reinforced the cruel narrative that aging actresses were objects of horror or pity rather than respect. As the 1960s progressed, quality roles disappeared. Crawford's final films were largely budget horror movies, a far cry from her glamorous heyday. Her last screen appearance in the science fiction film Trog, 1970, was an undignified end to a legendary career. Yet even then, she approached the role with professional dedication, bringing grace to material that deserved none. After seeing the final cut, she reportedly decided to retire, unwilling to further tarnish the image she had spent decades perfecting. In her final years, Crawford increasingly withdrew from public life. She became a recluse in her New York apartment, rarely allowing visitors or photographers. Those who did see her reported that she maintained her standards of appearance and housekeeping to the end. When photographer Eve Arnold captured rare images of Crawford in her 60s, the star insisted on approving every photograph, destroying negatives that revealed too much of the reality of age. The woman who had lived for the camera now feared its unforgiving eye. Crawford's relationship with alcohol, long rumored in Hollywood circles, reportedly intensified during this period of isolation. Friends described concerning patterns of drinking, though Crawford herself never publicly acknowledged any problems. Her final years were marked by illness, including a battle with cancer that she kept private. To the end, she controlled what the world could see. When she died on May 10th, 1977, her instructions were explicit. No funeral service, no grave marker for fans to visit. Even in death, she would not allow an unphotographed moment. The posthumous publication of Mommy Dearest the following year ensured that Crawford's legacy would be forever complicated. For younger generations, the abusive mother portrayed in the book and subsequent film overshadowed the pioneering actress who had fought her way from poverty to legend. The wire hangers and no wire hangers ever became punchlines, reducing a complex woman to a caricature. Christina Crawford maintained that her goal was never to destroy her mother's legacy, but to tell her own story of survival. Whether intended or not, the memoir forever changed how the world viewed Joan Crawford. Yet focusing solely on the sensational aspects of Crawford's life obscures a remarkable story of reinvention and perseverance. In an era when the studio system treated actors as disposable commodities, Crawford repeatedly defied expectations and rebuilt her career from the ashes. Her work ethic was legendary, her commitment to her craft unquestionable. From silent films to talkies, from ingenue to mature roles, she navigated technological and cultural shifts that derailed many of her contemporaries. For every story of Crawford's difficult behavior, there are counterbalancing accounts of her generosity to fans and loyalty to those who helped her career. What should we make of Joan Crawford today? Perhaps the most honest assessment acknowledges both her remarkable achievements and her human complexity. She was a pioneer who helped define screen acting, a businesswoman who understood her brand decades before that concept became common, and a survivor who refused to accept the limited options society offered women of her era. She was also a person shaped by childhood trauma, fighting demons the public never fully saw, driven by insecurities that no amount of fame could cure. The most private photos of Joan Crawford might not be physical images at all, but rather the glimpses of vulnerability that occasionally broke through the carefully constructed facade. The moments when the camera caught her looking tired or uncertain, the rare interviews where she spoke about her fears rather than her triumphs. These fleeting glimpses reveal a woman far more interesting than either the glamour goddess or the monster mother, a human being navigating impossible expectations, both external and self-imposed. In the end, Crawford's greatest performance may have been Joan Crawford herself. She created a character so compelling that the world is still fascinated decades after her death. From the chorus girl Lucille to the legend Joan, she wrote her own story through sheer force of will. The price was high, authentic connections sacrificed for image control, peace of mind exchanged for perpetual perfection. But in a world that offered women limited paths to power, Crawford seized control of her narrative and refused to let go. Her story reminds us that public images are constructions, carefully edited to show only what the subject wishes us to see. Behind every perfect photograph lies the messier reality of being human. If Crawford's life teaches anything, it's that the pursuit of perfection exacts a terrible cost, but also that reinvention is always possible. No matter how many times the world tries to write you off, you can fight your way back into the spotlight if you're willing to pay the price. If stories of Hollywood's golden age and the complicated lives behind the glamour intrigue you, there's more to discover about the stars who shaped our cultural imagination. Their struggles and triumphs continue to resonate because they speak to universal human experiences, the desire for recognition, the fear of irrelevance, and the hope that somehow our work might outlive us. Joan Crawford, for all her contradictions, achieved that kind of immortality.